Music is an important part of our lives. It can transport us back in time, evoke memories. It can pull at your heartstrings and make you cry. It can empower you and make you feel pride. Sometimes it just makes you feel good. This is where we celebrate the artists that have brought us great music throughout the years. And maybe, just maybe, we'll learn something interesting along the way. But maybe the most interesting thing we'll learn is the answer to the question, if not for music. If Not For Music is heard on Apple, Spotify, Google, Amazon, Pandora, just to name a few. Find us where you find your favorite podcast.
Wow. That's quite an intro. Wow.
Hey, so here's the deal, man. I remember the first time I interviewed you, I called you up and I said, okay, so what do you want to talk about? Because I had already had in my mind we were going to do 180, the album, you know, the big album you guys had back in the 80s, and that was going to be what we talked about. And you threw me a curveball. You said, I want to do the first album.
Well, that's considered, one of the, that's in the top 100. I mean, in some lists, everybody's got their own list, but in some lists, that's in the top 100 albums of all time, the first album. So thanks to you, I have that album. I have that album in my collection that I wouldn't have had otherwise because I couldn't find it on CD anywhere. Right.
I actually had to go to a record store and buy it and then download the album to my computer.
Oh, wow.
So that we could have the music to talk about during that interview. So that was kind of cool.
Oh. Well, did it change your life, that album?
Yeah, it did, man. I've always been a big Ambrosia fan. So yeah, I loved it. Mother Frog, man. Mother Frog.
Yes.
Mama Frog, man. So anyway, so what I want to talk to you today is just your music in general, and I wanted you to tell us about your childhood and your early influences and how you got into music.
Well, okay. Well, I'm an Army brat. My father was a full colonel in the Army. And so I grew up on, military bases all up and down the East Coast. And finally, around the age of 7, went to Turkey, Ankara, Turkey for 4 years. And I think that's where I finally got initially turned on to percussion. Not even music per se, but just the kinetic art of hitting things. I got separated from my mom in a bazaar, and I entered the back tent of these guys that were hammering the big brass plates. About 6 guys sitting in a circle, spinning the plate and hammering. And I thought I was there like 10 minutes, but my mom told me I was there for 2 hours. It's just mesmerized by what they were doing. And ever since then, I've been wanting to hit things, in a musical way.
Yeah, let's stress that heavily.
No, I would be pathetic hitting anything else. But yeah. So that's kind of the first initial impetus, and of course, being in Turkey and on military bases, and they had a commissary. That's their general store, and for me, I got my first 3 records, I think, when I was 8 or 9. The Battle of 1814, The Martian Hop, and It's Late by Ricky Nelson. So that was my first collection of songs. And then from there, I just started going crazy. And then I took a big detour into jazz because when we came back to the United States, my parents split up, and my dad would send a driver to pick me up to go see him, and that was my education in jazz because the driver just played jazz nonstop. So he filled me with who, what, where, and when that I was listening to, and I just became totally enamored with the whole Coltrane, Miles, all that stuff, jazz, and then I took another detour and got into ethnic African drumming and Indian drumming. Ala Raka, Ravi Shankar's tabla player, and Kwasi Badu, master drummer from Ghana. So I've had a lot of, crazy influences. And above all that, pop music. I just love it.
So I guess it's fair to say that all those early influences influenced your drumming style and your music over the years. The first album with Ambrosia was really prog rock. I mean, it was a mixture of all kinds of stuff. So was that a big influence on that as well?
Oh yeah, absolutely. In fact, I mean, I think when you talk about Ambrosia, there was many influences, but most people don't realize that probably one of the bigger influences on Ambrosia was Traffic, the band Traffic. And then one night, the band happened to see King Crimson on their initial tour of the United States, and that just kind of blew the lids off of Ambrosia. And because before that, we were a band that played country, pop, jazz. We played everything. But when we heard King Crimson, it's like Prague. That was all we wanted to play.
Wow.
So that was the influences on our first two records, actually. And that influence stayed in the band for the whole duration. It's just that we had other influences creep in, like okay, so during our first two records, in order to support ourselves, to have a little money, we would play a female gay bar at night. Which was a lot of fun, a lot more fun than it sounds. But we played R&B all night. That's all, because they wanted to dance, and they wanted to dance and make out in the corner and stuff like that. So that you kind of become what you play a little bit. So all of a sudden we were writing tunes like "Biggest Part of Me" and "Living on My Own" and "How Much I Feel," more R&B stuff, just because we were playing so much of it, to survive.
And so, I remember a story you told me in our first interview that we did several years ago that when you were recording your first album, you spent a lot of time in the studio and you guys were sleeping in the studio. I think you said there were some people camped under the tables sleeping.
Oh, yeah. Sure, yeah. I mean, when we did our first record, and, the guy that first signed us his name was Russ Regan, and that was for a label 20th Century Fox. And Russ Regan also discovered Elton John, Neil Diamond, Olivia Newton-John, Barry White, people like that. So he had a pretty good ear for music. And when he came, so he wanted us to demo up our songs so he could come in and pick what he thought, So we demoed up 60 different songs. And full on production. They were all good enough to be on a record, but they were every kind of music you can imagine. And he came in and heard all the songs, and he picked Nice Nice, Holding On, and I think probably Mama Frog. And what he said was, he says, he goes, all these songs are great, he goes, but this style, he goes, I don't have that. I have pop people, I have R&B, I have, he says, but I don't have this prog element. And if you guys could do that, that would be wonderful. So that was like, yeah, we can do that.
So when you started out and you got your first record deal.
Yeah.
How far did you think you could take your career at that point? Did you think you guys were on top of the world? You were going to take it, I mean, what was your vision at that point?
I think we thought we could do anything, but with a good, with a healthy dose of respect for what everybody else was doing, and realizing that, I thought we were an intensely creative, original band But but at the same time realizing that there was that many amazing, great artists out there as well. So not that we just thought that the world was everything was possible, and I mean, we were writing music that even was a little beyond our capability to play, but we didn't let that stop us.
Oh, so here's a I don't know if this is a good question, but it just came to mind. So you're hearing all this music in your ears all the time, especially as a musician, and you're writing music for an album.
Mm-hmm.
How do you keep that music from not just influencing you, but seeping into where you feel like maybe you've infringed on somebody else's work?
Well, I mean, I don't think we ever worried about that or were concerned about that, and unless it was pointed out to us that it was, but we never purposely, and we've never been called out for imitating somebody else or stealing somebody's melody or lyric concept, which is amazing. There's 12 notes in the scale, and you would think, there would be a lot more copycat stuff going on, but we never ever seemed to have that problem. So, I guess George Harrison did, but we didn't.
All right. So tell us about how many of the artists that you have played, or I'm sorry, let me reword this. Tell me how many artists you have played for, either in recording sessions or you played live in a concert with.
Well, I can start listing. I've played with a lot of my heroes. I guess starting the whole band, I'm sure would agree with Michael McDonald has been. We've kind of got an association with Michael McDonald that we do benefits together. Like if we get a benefit that we're doing, we'll ask him, and if he gets one, he'll ask us to be his band. So we'll go and do our songs and then bring him up, and we'll be his backup band. And that's by far one of the highlights that we've ever had. Because I've never seen anybody put out so much on stage as Michael McDonald. He's an inspiration. But Dave Mason, Alan Parsons, Bill Champlin, huge influence. And my wife and I, Mary, and myself, we play in his band as well as, and she plays with me in Ambrosia too. And we're honored to play with Bill Champlin. And Edgar Winter, that's been a wonderful one. And the list is incredible. And then, of course, a lot of musicians. There's a lot of musicians in LA, especially that I've done a lot of session work. And I'm always very excited when I know who's going to be on a session that I'm going to do, and some of the greatest musicians in the world. I just did a percussion date for a Chinese film composer, and Vinny Colaiuta was the drummer. And here I am playing percussion with the probably the best drummer in the world. So
wow,
and so it's great.
Have you guys ever done anything with Steve Lukather?
Yes, that's funny you should ask that, because we again another benefit, and I knew the Porcaro family very well, Joe Porcaro, and Toto was on the benefit, but they needed a bass player and a drummer because they couldn't fly their people in. So Joe Puerta from Ambrosia and myself, we became their bass player and drummer for the evening, and
That's cool.
Yeah, that was interesting. That was very interesting.
Yeah, Lukather, he's always been one of my heroes as far as a guitar player. The guy's been so active in sessions and recording, and man, he's just a phenomenon to watch him play.
Oh yeah, he's a force of nature, man.
So,
unbelievable. Yeah,
pretty great stuff.
Yeah.
So today, looking at the music scene today, is there anybody that you really enjoy today as an artist that you really? If you turned on your iPod or your phone or whatever, is there somebody that's in your earphones when you're listening to?
Well, it's interesting because I have my daughter's 24 and my son is 32, and they're always exposing me to music. I kind of live in my little world because I do a lot of composing, and people send me. I do a lot of recording and composing, especially now that we're locked down all the time and all that. But my studio is still pretty active. But my daughter and son will bring in these new artists. It's hard for me to remember the names because they'll give me a song at a time, but I'm impressed with what's out there now. It's like I don't think. I mean, I hear all these kind of dire assessments of where music's gone, but what they're playing me is pretty phenomenal. So I can't say music has taken a low turn. I think it's on a high.
I noticed Saturday night I go out and do wedding parties and stuff like that every once in a while, and so I get these music lists from these clients ahead of time, and I'm starting to realize how old I am because when they give me these music lists, I might have like 5 songs in there that I recognize. So right. I understand where you're coming from in that sense.
You're right. No, I had the same experience. A friend of mine called me he has one of those bands that plays big events. And I guess you call that a casual, or and he said, "Hey, can you come play for me?" Oh yeah, sure, yes. Send me the list. And the same thing. Out of about 40 songs, I know 5 of the songs. I had to do. But there was some amazing stuff. But yeah. But I had to woodshed to go do what used to be like go to the bar and play a bunch of tunes. And everything. I know nothing.
Yeah, I asked my wife. I said, "Am I getting too old for this? I don't know this music anymore. Am I getting too outdated?" She said, "No, you're fine." So I just have to listen to her advice. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about Tin Drum, your band.
Okay. Well, Tin Drum, we started, I think mid 90s. So I met my wife. And we had a child. We got married in 1983, and so she started touring with Animal Logic and Jimmy Buffett, and she's an incredible piano player, singer. And so Ambrosia had stopped at that time, or we were taking, we stopped for about 6 years, and so I was touring with Jim Messina and some other people, but. So we had a son, and we were both working to the point where we were handing off our son to each other in an airport. Like she'd be flying in, I'd be flying out. Hey, here's our son. See you in a week, or And it just got to the point where we felt like if we didn't start something together, then we'd forever be in and out the door, one in, one out. So we started Tin Drum, and we did 3 albums so far, and we won a bunch of awards for best independent releases and stuff like that, and did pretty well. And then my wife, she became part of Ambrosia, and Ambrosia reformed, and she started playing keyboards and singing with Ambrosia. So we kind of put our interest in Ambrosia, and that grew exponentially, and now it's pretty full time. But now I have to actually thank this whole COVID thing. It's weird to thank COVID, but because of the shutdown, my whole family's here. My wife, my son, his wife, and our 2 grandkids. My daughter's home from the Peace Corps, and they're all musicians. So we started the Tin Drum Family Band, and we're doing all these streaming shows, and I've never had so much fun because because it's only the 4 of us, so somebody has to play bass. So we draw straws, like who's going to play bass? Who's going to be the guitar player? But it's really been a kick in the pants, to get it together on other instruments, and everybody has to bring in a couple songs, and it's been a lot of fun. Yeah.
You know, and I will say this about COVID. That is one good thing I can say about COVID. It seems to have brought families closer together, because that time you were spending going out to eat or going places, now you're at home with each other. You're getting to know each other, and you're doing things together.
Yeah.
And, you know, I was telling my wife the other day, I can't remember the last time we went out to eat. I mean, because even if we get takeout food, we'll have it brought to the house. You know, we don't
Right.
to eat anymore. So that's not a bad thing.
No, no, it's been great. I mean, I consider myself lucky because the way it happened, you know, I have my two granddaughters here, and you know, I'm treasuring this time because I know as soon as COVID lifts, they're going to move. My daughter's probably going to move, you know, and then, you know, if I want to see my grandkids, I'll probably have to drive 3 hours or fly. Who knows, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like, man, I'm going to soak this up as much as I possibly can.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
All right. So looking back over your career, you know, over the many years that you've been in the business, is there anything that you would change about your career path, or anything you would change in your music?
No, I don't think I would change, you know, the general trajectory, and I definitely wouldn't change all the opportunities I've had to engage with, you know, so many amazing musicians and writers. I mean, the one thing I would do now, I don't know where I would find would have found the time, but I would have studied composition more and wrote more. You know, because I was so busy making a living playing drums, which I don't regret at all. It's just I have a little bit more time now, so I'm going back and studying piano because my wife's the teacher. My wife's a piano teacher, and it's great. But I just wish I hadn't stopped, you know, because I played in college because I had to, and you know, you get busy with your career. So, you know, and that your career is usually based around whatever you do best, you know, so.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so obviously drums was my forte, drums and percussion, but now all I want to do is practice piano.
Is there a project in your span of music that you're most proud of?
Well, I mean, definitely the first Ambrosia album, I think that is a great statement by a band, by a collection of 4 guys coming together to create that piece of music. I thought that was pretty good. You know, I mean, I'm proud of everything we've done, but I think that album in Ambrosia's history is the standout to me.
So if you don't have that album, everybody needs to pick that up because it's really good stuff. I can vouch for that. I've got the album now. Thank you. Is there anything that Ambrosia is working on in the way of new material right now?
Yeah, we have a collection of songs that didn't, you know, they were demos that never made the records, maybe because they weren't finished or whatever happened, you know, they didn't make the cut. But in going back, we've listened to a lot of those things, and we're realizing they could have been as they had every bit as they were every bit as good as the songs that made the records. So we want to put out this collection of unreleased songs that was out, and there's one in particular. I think it could be as big a hit as anything Ambrosia ever had. So, cool. I'm anxious for it to get out there. Yeah.
So when it came to songwriting, when you guys were putting an album together, was there somebody that did the bulk of the songwriting, or was it like a group effort?
Well, it was a group effort to a point. If I had to say, as far as lyrically writing lyrics, I'd say I kind of compare it to the Beatles in a way. Joe Porta and Dave Pack were kind of like the Lennon and McCartney of the band, and I was kind of like the George Harrison guy. I would bring in a couple songs per album, but they wrote all the time, and I wrote when I wasn't doing sessions and stuff like that. So, but luckily I have to say they're 2 of my favorite writers. So there was always good material.
Well, yeah, we can vouch for that. We've been listening to it, for forever. All right, my last question for you, Burleigh. This is one I've got to ask because this is the name of the show here, the name of the podcast, If Not for Music. So my question to you is, if not for music, where do you think your career path would have been?
Well, the more I think I'd be, even though she came later. My daughter's been a huge influence on me, and her work with social justice and homeless people, people like things like that. I'd probably be a social worker, probably of some kind. I know that doesn't sound glamorous, but that's probably where I would have, gone into.
No, I've got a friend of mine. In fact, I'm doing a podcast with her. She's a social worker, and you got to have a servant's heart to be a social worker, and you got to understand where people are coming from. So
yeah,
I get that. That's a great profession. There's nothing wrong with that at all.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I mean, yeah, my daughter has done a lot of that. She went into the Peace Corps and went to Thailand and came home because of COVID, but she really awakened me to a lot of that service, and I think it's just amazing.
Well, I'll tell you this, Burleigh. I got a chance to finally meet you because I know I did an interview with you. I mean, probably 15 years ago, and then we were in Mansfield. You guys were in Mansfield, Texas, doing a yacht rock review concert.
Oh yeah, right.
And I hung out with you backstage, and that was really cool. And I'm gonna tell you, man, you're one of the nicest dudes I've ever met in rock music, and I've met a lot of them, but you're one of the nicest guys I've ever met. So,
yeah, thank you, man. I appreciate it.
You definitely have a servant's heart.
Oh, thank you.
Well, thank you so much for giving us your time today. I totally appreciate it. And man, make sure all your friends know about our podcast. We're trying to get it out. We're trying to get it out over the airways.
I will, Kenny. Thanks for having me, man.
Thank you so much, brother.
Okay.
Have a good one.
You too, buddy. Okay.
And you've been listening to If Not for Music. Thank you so much for listening in. And make sure you tune in next week. We're going to have Walter Egan. Walter Egan had the hit song back in the 70s, Magnet and Steel. That'll be coming your way next week on If Not for Music.